who do you remember being a fan of before you stepped into wrestling?
Gosh, so many. Gosh, I can't even think of one right now.
This is a terrific. I think this is a terrific. I'm going to step around the rubble today, Christopher. I think.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
7 for the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
If you're going to do media, probably a good idea to prep yourself on what I would consider a basic question. If you are a pro wrestler, you probably should be able to answer a question like, well, who was your influence? But that's just me. Maybe I'm looking too deep into that. But we'll get into all that stuff later. Hello, folks. This is your host, Mr. Green, and you are listening to the Rights and Wrongs Pro Wrestling Podcast. And if you started this at the beginning, then you heard that opening segment where one member of the former Exile, but I'm not really sure if the Exile exists anymore, Genesis, was seemingly stumped by asking, well, who's somebody that influenced you? That was very disappointing. Very disappointing. But, we got time to go and all that good stuff. And, of course, there's going to be the review of the last episode aired of WoW. Last week, I had a lot less issue with the program. It seems to be that way when it's a more or less wrestling-heavy product and not a lot of storyline and angles and stuff like that tends to take place. It's less stuff for them to get confused or lose track of or just do nonsensical things with. When they just have matches, it seems to be a little better, except when we have to deal with the commentary and their narrative, if you will, on certain things. I do believe this is going to be a very WoW-centric episode. Not a lot of wrestling news that's going on at this particular moment that I feel like is worth going into. So I think what we're going to do is go into the review. This is an additional review of the the media appearance at San Diego Comic-Con of the WoW representatives, that being David McLean, Jeannie Buss, Coach Campanelli, and Genesis. So, as stated earlier, you did hear a clip of what took place at that particular thing. And I'm just going to say right now, first off, you can find the entirety of that interview. It's done by Variety, but I was unable to find it on Variety's YouTube. So you have to go to Variety's website if you wanted to catch it through them. But of course, WoW has taken the footage and they've put it on their website. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but it's uploaded through Dailymotion. I honestly have forgotten Dailymotion existed. But yeah, if you want to see this, it's about 22 minutes long. I can summarize the bulk of this conversation. It's basically 3 to 4 talking points across 22 minutes. 1, thank you, Jeannie Buss, for making this happen. 2, we have elevated women's wrestling. 3, we now have a 24-hour day, 7-day a week stream channel that'll be starting up in season 3, concurrent with season 3. And the last thing being is just the elevation through WOW of women's sports collectively. Those are your basic talking points. There, of course, they have other stuff that's thrown in there between that, but there's very little to do with wrestling here, if we're gonna just summarize the entire thing. And the fact that it's done by Variety, the fact that the interview went the way that it went, if ever there was a sign that was like, yeah, this thing is not a wrestling promotion, it was probably that. At least for me. Every time I see WOW and they do things like this, I was like, it's coming more and more evident that this has very little to do with pro wrestling beyond the fact that pro wrestling is a backdrop. I'm almost at a point where I say, they should just take that show, retool it, and just make it something like what Heels was, or the Glow Netflix series or something like that, because I'm sure that a good chunk of them would rather be doing that than actually wrestling. They probably would rather just play the part of a wrestler, which I'm pretty sure some of them have convinced themselves that's what they're doing, rather than to be a wrestler in and of itself. But that's neither here nor there. The interview. First off, it being with Variety and not any pro wrestling journalistic source says a lot. I guess we should just include this as the news, views, and updates portion of the show. I usually try to work that in there somehow, so I'm assuming that this is going to be my opening for that, because I don't have really a lot of other stuff to go into. So anyway, it being on Variety, and not even a high-profile piece on Variety. This was done by one of their interns. Yes, I did look into that. I was like, let me see who actually performed this, because they seem not to know very much about pro wrestling. I mean, they did a fine job interviewing. And I don't want to discount the young lady that did the interviewing. Selena Kuznikov is her name. And I did reach out to ask her some ancillary questions about that particular interview. Have not been responded to yet. If she does, but I'm just saying, if I do get a response, of course, I will bring that up and I will let you guys know exactly what information I got. But as it stands right now, it didn't seem to me as if it was her overall line of work to be smart to what wrestling had or what it's about. She asked very basic questions, most of which are kind of centered around it being more of a TV show. The important person that was there was Jeannie Buss. If you do look for it on YouTube, the only clip of the 22 minutes that's used is about a minute long of Jeannie Buss saying, hey, we have a Pluto TV channel so our fans can find us easier. It's a short. And that's about it. I didn't see much else. When I see this, it makes me think to myself, what audience is WOW aiming to get? And I know I asked that before, but this really drives it home. It's like, what audience is WOW aiming to get? They are being interviewed by a press outlet that is nominally movies and TV. Yes, WOW is on television, but I don't care how they try to reconstruct it. Wrestling is not perceived that way by most people. They do not look at it in the same light as you would, say, in Abbott Elementary or the Connors. Dexter. You name it. There's very little of those people that look at it like, oh, well, these are just people that are acting and playing a part. The two are mostly interchangeable in most people's minds, whether they consider it a work or not. So going on to a variety, you're not aiming towards people who would mostly want to hear that information or care. Because most people that subscribe to Variety or go on there, they're looking for movie stars, television stars, your Jennifer Aniston's, your Hugh Jackman's, your Ryan Reynolds, Quinta Brunson's, the Shirley Ralphs. They're trying to get information on things like that. Not necessarily pro wrestling stuff. Even if they try to disguise it as something else. Their stuff doesn't really go out to a pro wrestling crowd. Wrestle Talk, WrestleNomics, even Diva Dirt. Most of them do not cover WoW. If they do, it's got to be something like really significant. And the last time they got any sort of press with them is because of the drama that took place with the Tonga twins. Other than that, it's more or less ignored. Somebody left a comment, was it Lindsay Ray Gunn? I think she left a comment to somebody in response to them saying that WoW is terrible for women's wrestling. Now, look, I don't fully agree with that. Or it's something to the effect of it was ruining all of women's wrestling. And she responded, and I agree with the response, like, I don't know how WoW kind of exists in its own little bubble. And that's true. WoW exists in its own little bubble. It's not covered by wrestling media. It tries to lend itself to to the mainstream media, but how much of that actually goes? They don't really try to do angles or storylines or anything like that wrestling has kind of been built on. Most of what they like to portray is this message of positivity and that we're doing this for little girls and we're trying to be superheroes for everybody, that was another thing I really didn't understand. You have a sit-down interview with a publication like Variety. It's not really a publication these days, but you get the point. And we're talking about positivity and wow, superheroes and whatnot, and you bring two of your heels onto this interview set, talking about how they want to influence people and be role models for them. Like, you can't even suspend the disbelief. Never mind the fact that it doesn't even seem in continuity with what's going on TV. I mean, you got Coach Campanelli, who currently on television is part of Top Tier and in an entirely different outfit than what she showed up in. But for whatever reason, she shows up at San Diego Comic-Con in her old red and green and white outfit. And then you got Genesis, who went out of her way to say that she's outside of exile, but then she shows up in a place wearing an exile shirt. So I don't know. And I also knew that this was going to happen, that any pertinent information that was going to be asked was not going to be answered by any of the three women that was on there. Not Jeannie Buss, not Coach or Genesis. It was going to be David McClain. He was going to be able to answer because he's the only one that knows. And, if there's any plus that I have to give that interview, is David McClain. He knows how to work his mark. And I'm sure no one wants to call Jeannie Buss that, but look, if we're going to put Dixie Carter in that category, if we're going to put Herb Abrams in that category, if we're going to put Tony Khan in that category, she deserves to go in that category too. Somebody who was talked into doing this based on something that they probably are not going to achieve through pro wrestling. I want to be able to make superheroes, and that interviewer asking them about comic books, like how they transition this into real life heroes, and it's all the fluff piece stuff that WoW has constantly done. We're positioning ourselves as this kind of bastion of hope for any woman athlete out there that has not been able to do whatever it is that they've been trying to do. Which is why I wanted to take this moment to take a few clips and respond to those clips from that interview. So the first thing that I wanted to do was Coach Campanelli's comment. So I'm going to play that and then I'll respond.
Jeannie has been such an inspiration and a huge support. It's been amazing to feel not only that people believe in you, but that they're willing to bet on you too. And feeling that huge support has helped not only elevate, I think, women's wrestling, but wrestling as a whole.
All right. So the elevation of women's wrestling, which is noble. However, and I say this with all due respect to WOW and the things that they have done, but I have to ask, and if anybody there wants to respond, feel free, comment, direct message, call, whatever way that you choose to do it. But how has WOW exactly elevated women's wrestling? And I'm not saying that to be a smartass. I'm just seriously, how has WOW elevated women's wrestling? What metric are we basing this on? Because I really sat and kind of went through the numbers in my head. I was like, I don't know how anybody who knows anything about pro wrestling could say that. The closest that you can get off of that doesn't even coincide with WOW. It mostly coincides with David McLean, in that he is responsible for having the first all-women's televised wrestling show, and he deserves credit for that. But that's not WOW. That's Glow. If you just want to inherit the credit of that with WOW, then maybe. But that's a stretch. Anything else, what are we talking about? How is this measured? What elevation are we speaking of? It cannot be because of exposure. That title would belong to the WWE. Your Charlotte Flairs, your Baileys, your Becky Lynch's, your Rhea Ripley's, your Liv Morgan's and stuff. You know, they've made them into stars. They main evented at WrestleMania. They wrestled in front of, thousands of people? That was a big deal. That was elevation. They had their full-on pay-per-view. Probably wasn't a big success financially, but at that point, it probably didn't hurt them either, because of all the money that they get off of rights deals and things like that. But it can't be based on exposure of talent. That title belongs to the WWE. It can't be based on, we had a successful pay-per-view. The one and only pay-per-view that WOW has had was a financial flop. And I don't think anybody there in that office is going to debate me or dispute that. Did not go anywhere. You couldn't even get interest in it in hindsight. Why? Because they did not have enough people, top to bottom, through 13 matches, who could hold a match. It was the old, you can doctor it up. You can put vignettes. You can have them act. You could do stuff backstage. You could do this, that, and the other, and everything else. But at some point, that bell has to ring. And they couldn't do it. Out of 13 matches, you probably have 2 that were reasonable or exciting. The rest of them were as mediocre as it could be, and that included the championship match. So no one was going to go back and start saying, hey, you need to go watch this pay-per-view because it's good. It was bad in-ring work. It was bad in terms of finance. It was bad in terms of technical issues. Nothing about that work, so it can't be that. It couldn't be getting people attention on women's wrestling either. That's probably going to belong to TNA Wrestling. When everybody else in the wrestling sphere on television was treating women's wrestling as a joke, TNA Wrestling came along. It took some convincing for them to do it, but they started to let the women have matches, and good ones. And they tried, most tried to work hard at it. Gail Kim and Awesome Kong defined the early years of that division. Those matches could probably be looked at today and you can say, man, that was some good stuff. They did that when the WoW fell off the face of the earth and went into hiatus. They put women's wrestling into a situation where they were comparable, at least ratings-wise, to the men. And keep in mind, this is at a point in time where you got people like Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, Kurt Angle, Sting, Booker T. You know, this is at a point where they had some top-tier people there. Bobby Roode and others. And they stood side by side and right along with them. So it's not going to be match quality that WoW was talking about. What other thing can you say? It's probably not going to be ratings. At least not at this point. They did get up there at some point, but then they started to divvy back down. Now, if they've somehow turned it around and they've gotten the ratings back up since the last time I've seen ratings, that's a whole different issue. But at the time, WoW was trending down in ratings. So it can't be any of these things. It's not merchandise sales. Most people don't even know that they sell merchandise. Even though in one episode, and I promise this happened, David McClain said that the Psycho Sisters, they were the Psycho Sisters at the time, were a top seller on Pro Wrestling Tees. That the Psycho Sisters t-shirts were a top seller on Pro Wrestling Tees. I immediately went to go check into that. And the guys there was like, look, we can't disclose that information, and then he gave me the little Iggy on the side. But if you go to the menu, we list who sells the most by week, month, and year. Nothing from WoW cracked any of it, much less a top seller. And he was saying that at a time when you got like CM Punk just coming back into the fold of wrestling. AEW was hot. I think they were probably the top sellers at that time. To say that they existed in that line as elevating women's wrestling, no, not really. So what else is there? In-ring work, pay-per-view, personalities and recognition. Merchandise sales, TV ratings, groundbreaking matches and or presentation. None of those things have happened. I would even go so far to say that WoW took us 20 years backwards rather than going forward. And I know somebody's like, well, why is it 20 years backwards? Because who does the over-the-top cartoon gimmicks anymore? They dropped that because people were tired of them. There's a reason that the WWE didn't use guys like the Goon anymore, or Mantar, or the Wrestling Monk, or Wrestling Plumber. Yes, every once in a while you'll get something that works even amongst the silliness. Doink the Clown, Evil Doink specifically with Matt Bourne worked. But it probably mostly worked because Matt Bourne was damn good at what he did. He wasn't a good person, but he was good at what he did. And he was able to get that gimmick over. The rest of it was just doomed from the start. So I don't know what what those things are. So I am sorry to dispute Campanelli and her thoughts, because I'm pretty sure she fully believes what she said. But no, WoW does not get credit for that. Before I even move on, I just need to say this other thing, and I don't get anything off of this. Never met this guy at all. But if anybody deserves credit for that, I would say it's Dave Prazak. Dave Prazak and Shimmer deserve credit for helping elevate women's wrestling. At a time when WoW again had fallen off the map and they was in a 14-year hiatus, he was producing Shimmer. He was producing serious, competitive wrestling matches and strong personalities to go against each other so that the wrestling fan would want to see who won or lost. And there's probably more people that have left out of that company to go do something else at a higher level than anything that WoW has ever produced over the course of 20 years, if you're going to count them from day one to now. Mercedes Martinez, Bailey when she was Davina Rose, Natty Neidhart before she became Natalia, Madison Rain, not Ariel Sky, wrong one. Certainly not her. All due respect to her, but no, she wasn't in that. The beautiful people, Angelina Love, Velvet Sky. That's what I was trying to think of. I mean, I know she's got a black eye on her reputation, Tessa Blanchard. There's dozens, there's several of them there that had gone through Shimmer's doors and walked out on the other side of it, at least having elevated themselves to some degree. Tell me where WoW does that. He deserves credit. He, Allison Danger, and TNA Wrestling, they deserve a lot of credit for that, because I'll put TNA Wrestling there ahead of the WWE because they were doing it first. WWE gets more credit for it because they got a bigger fan base and / exposure. So when they got on their kick about women's wrestling and they had to do the first women's Royal Rumble and the first women's Money in the Bank and the first women's elimination champion, when they went through having to do all of that, TNA had already done it. The only drawback that they ever did that I disagree with is that they doubled down on Tessa Blanchard to win that championship, their World's Championship, because they wanted to be first to do it. Now nobody's even thinking about it. But anyhow, I don't get that, Campanelli. I'm sorry. I don't know how that is viewed as some sort of elevation of women's wrestling or wrestling in general. And I don't know what your definition of a major company is either. She did say it's a major company at some point, but I don't know what their definition of WoW is now a major company. I don't know. I didn't see any change for it to be a major company. It's major because it's on TV and it's across the country. David McClain. His answer falls in what I just said. He basically said that they had the best women's wrestling in the world. Seriously? Just having Spring Break 24/7 alone disqualifies you from that statement. There is no way that you can look at WoW top to bottom and say that this is the best women's wrestling on the planet. There are some very good people there, but they're weighed down by the albatross of the people that WoW just decides to train and throw them on TV 3 months later. So no. It's easy for him to say it because there's not a lot of people to dispute it. And his words were the best women's wrestling on TV. That's a negative, sir. Not so long as a knockouts division exists. Not so long as there's a diamonds division in Texas. Not so long as there's a WWE women's division. WoW is not the best women's wrestling on TV. They have very, very talented persons in there, but every day that goes by and every time they go through a hiring phase of just grabbing up somebody that decides to answer the ad, that dwindles down further and further. The next clip is something I really had a problem with. So I'm going to play that and then we'll get to the response.
I looked at, the success of the WNBA, women's tennis, women's golf, now women's soccer, and there's just so many more athletes that don't have a place to, show the years of dedication and the athleticism. And I always felt that wrestling had such a great, passionate audience. If we could bring together bring back the women of wrestling and find these athletes that need a platform so that they can shine and show off all the discipline and the dedication and the sacrifice that they went through to become the athletes that they are. Women's sports need people like me to invest back and create opportunities for women in sports.
That was Jeannie Buss pretty much repeating her overall talking point since WOW has been created. And I am now going to publicly say that I'm going to call bullshit on that. I call bullshit. I am sure that she feels very confidently and believes every word that she says, and that WOW is there to kind of help women across the board and, in so many words, give a place for those women who do not or could not obtain the lane that they were aiming for. Well, they can come to WOW. That's essentially because we want to give everybody the opportunity. The reason I call BS on that is because your wrestling show, at the very least, maybe not a wrestling promotion, but your wrestling show. If you, and I'm talking directly to Jeannie Buss, if you believed what you were saying, then you would go out there and make it a mandate, hire up some of these women wrestlers that are out here on the independents that are looking for that opportunity, instead of skating around them and trying to find an actress or a model or whoever else decides that they want to look through the back page that day and want to get a paycheck for being in a stunt show. There's dozens upon dozens upon dozens upon dozens of women out, and I ain't saying every single one of them is great or good, but there are a lot of them out there who looking for their opportunity. If you believed what you were saying about providing that, then provide it to them. You have a wrestling ring and you have a wrestling show. And there are wrestlers out there who want that, who are trying to get it, doing everything they can. The only problem is that WOW's created such a reputation for themselves amongst the masses in the wrestling industry. Some of them wouldn't want to go, except for the ones who just trying, maybe they can help out the show, or maybe they can, leverage that into the next thing. But there's plenty of them out there. Plenty. Suplex Queen, Tanali, Jada Stone, Megan Bain, Queen Sheba, Izzy, who was just there a couple of years ago as a backstage interviewer. She's wrestling out. Izzy Morano, legit Layla Hirsch, the Fallen Flower, Kikyo, The Woad. I mean, that's just some off the top of my head. Why would you have that and not look into the pool by which it exists? It's like having a pickup game of basketball and a stands full of guys waiting to play, but I decide to walk out of that building like, let me go find somebody else. You walking down the street, you ever played basketball before? No. All right, no problem. I'll just train real quick and then let's go take this pickup game. That's what that's like. That's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. No other walk of life, no other business, no other sport would ever do that. But WoW is. That's why it becomes very hard for me to take it seriously. It becomes very hard for me to take it seriously when these type of decisions are not just made, but publicly stated, like it's a good thing. Those women have other places to go. You know what they are? It's the sport that they were in. If that's something they really want to do, then let them find their path and get there on their own. They will find it. And if not, I'm sorry, that's the way the world works. Everybody doesn't get their dream. But because you were a dancer and that's your dream in life doesn't mean that, all right, well, that'll translate into being a pro wrestler. How ridiculous does that sound? And all that does is make the people that do sign up there interchangeable parts. I have said that ad nauseum about this show. They have a lot of people who are just flat out interchangeable parts. This doesn't work out for you, we'll just get another one just like you. Don't believe me? Look at Spring Break 24/7. They got like 5 other women that existed in that same gimmick before they came along. Sandy, Summer, Sunny, Sunshine, Callie Ray, Sandy Shore, Crystal Waters, all the same thing. I like the Fab Four, but the truth is that they're an extension off of Lana Star. Now, that's not to say that the personality or the presentation didn't exist similar to that on the Independence for them. But WoW tooled them up to be more in line with her. And you know what they did with the last time they did that particular thing? Team Blondage. Same deal. Team Blondage already existed, but they tooled it up just to kind of exist along with her. Go back further than that. Had a Patty Pizzazz. Don't have her coming back? We'll just get Miss Kitty. Same thing. Let's not even start with the cheerleaders. Randy Rah point 2.0 because there was a Randy Rah in 2000. Can't keep her, get Ariel Sky. Can't do that, Pep Riley. Can't do that, Sasha Sparks. The All-American girls. Santana Garrett not here, we'll make it Americana. People legitimately thought that she was Santana Garrett. I've seen the comments, like, or at least they questioned it. Is that Santana Garrett? She looks different. Never mind the fact that even Americana's like an offshoot of something that they had 20, 30 years ago. Americana on Glow. They are interchangeable parts, and the second that they don't want to do it, they just create another one. So the end result there to my statement to Jeannie Buss is, if you believe what you are saying, put your money where your mouth is. That is the open challenge to her. Stop going around trying to grab up anybody that you can and do like you would do for the Lakers. Get top talent that can make the show work, that can deliver good matches, and then maybe you can start hiring some people, because then you'd have the time to keep them off TV until they can actually get it right. I think I just got myself all worked up. So this is going to be, is this my breaking point here? I don't mean I'm not going to run down the street with a baseball bat. I don't mean my break point of the show. That's what I meant, not my breaking point. Well, let's go through the old notes here and make sure I'm not missing anything before I skip over here. I think that's going to be it. Oh, you know what? No. I almost skipped one thing that I wanted to bring up. This is just a praising point. This is a praising point for somebody that's out in the Indies right now. a young lady by the name of Megan Bain, the Megasis. My gosh. Just going back to what I said right there, how do you not get somebody like that on your show? That woman is money. She's already got her gimmick. And because she created that gimmick on her own, she's delivering the goods on it. She's got a goddess gimmick. Taller than most of the women that she's around. So she can play up the Amazon portion of it. And because it's a goddess, she can work babyface or heel with that. She's money. And the thing that I really noticed, like, she's everything the Classmaster should have been. Tall, looks powerful, except that the Megasis is serious and the Classmaster isn't. Just since, this all came out of San Diego Comic-Con, I'm going to use this comic book relatable point. For those of you out there that read the comics or you watch the animated series or whatnot, Batman's a pretty paranoid guy. He has files on everyone, right? He's had a file on one character that I was like, you know what? That's the definition of the Classmaster right there. It was Plastic Man. And in so many words, he basically said Plastic Man could be dangerous if he wasn't resigned to himself being the comic relief. I couldn't have said it better. That's pretty much what she is. She would be dangerous if she hadn't resigned herself to being the comic relief. Megan Bain would be fantastic there. But I also, in the same breath, am going to say, stay away from WoW. I don't know if the Megasis in WoW would be a good idea under its current creative direction. The Megasis in WoW with a different direction could be a money match if you built her up towards the beast. Just saying. I'll be right back with the full review of WoW after this. Review begins now. And for those of you moviegoers out there, because I forgot to bring it up the last time. Hey, if you haven't seen Deadpool Wolverine, it is worth it. Go check that movie out. I'm not going to give no spoilers because I don't know where you are in seeing that. But I will say this just because, I like TV and movies because, I want to bring these things up sometimes. Sue me. I just want to say, it was a nice introduction of Deadpool into the Prime, we'll call it, Marvel Universe. Also the same thing with Wolverine. But almost more importantly than that, it was a nice internal and external thank you from Disney to Fox and their handling of some of their characters. Yeah, look, I know there's going to be people out there like, I didn't like, how Fox had Daredevil or the Punisher or Fantastic Four. Look, I get it. They did some terrible movies too. But, those were the building blocks of what we got with Marvel today. Because if somebody didn't screw it up first, you wouldn't have known how to do it right. All right, so now that I've got my little sidebar, the episode that we're going to go through today is going to be episode 246, titled Time to Shine. The chronological number will be 98. There are two underneath that 100 episode mark. The air date was July the 27th, and it began with a recap of the match between Los Bandidas and the Mighty Mites. Commentators opened the dialogue. They welcome to the WoW Arena. Now, I had to pause right there. I was like, when did they ever refer to this building as the WoW Arena? I do not recall this. I mean, I legit, I was like, did they ever say this before? I would think I would remember that, but the WoW Arena just kind of threw me off. Wasn't important, but it just had not heard it. But anyhow, the narrative here being is that the Bandidas put themselves into contendership by defeating the Mites. I just, at that point, I just had to say, okay, fine. Let me just accept that. Because I didn't know, A, that was a number one contenders match to begin with. And B, if it was, how did the Los Bandidas get into it? I mean, where did they win? A match? Before then, maybe? So that just puzzled me. I was like, they have just tossed themselves into number one contender status immediately after defeating the Mites. When Sophia Lopez, the world's greatest attorney, could barely buy them a shot. What do they have? Won once, maybe? I don't know. Wild shows the match and shows the promo following the match, or the highlights of the match, with Los Bandidas, specifically Angel Rose, starting off saying that they wanted a title match, which apparently David obliged them with and granted it. So I'm assuming. But he still talks through the interviews and promos, which is, just annoying. We go to the first match of the show and the second segment of this episode. Animal Instinct versus the All-American Girls. First problem here. Animal Instinct announced as a successful tag team. I said this was going to happen. That the commentary, specifically from David McClain, was going to drag Nigel down with him. Because he has to agree with stuff like this. And now you're seeing it unfold. How on earth is Animal Instinct a successful tag team when the only team that they've beaten is the Team Spirit, who barely tags up at all? This is like one win does that, and not just one win against a team that is barely there and has no wins underneath them whatsoever. How is Animal Instinct a successful tag team? I've stated that if you are a commentator, you are supposed to be a trusted voice. And I know WOW does not expect long-term memory from anybody that's watching the show. They can't expect that. Because I can't imagine why anybody would look at that and like, oh, yeah, they're successful. Except for their hardcore fans, the ones that disagree with everything that's said. And I've warned WOW about that publicly. I said those fans are going to give you a false read to your product. Because they're just going to say yay to almost everything. I mean, just the comments underneath that clip alone. I love the way the cat talks. Beautiful ladies. Geez, Santana has been on every promotion. Love Goldie getting pinned. Heart. I mean, come on. Wait, is she supposed to be a cat? These comments have very little to do with anything to how good or bad the match is. I mean, I love the way Goldie Collins talks too. Imagine if Katarina Jinks' opponent threw a ball of yarn in the ring. Would she be able to resist playing with it? These are all real comments. So, come on. Yes, they are loyal and they're going to watch the show, and you should not treat them badly. But like I said, that core audience that you have is going to give you a false read to how good or bad this stuff is. You need to aim higher than that. And that includes making your voice a trusted voice, giving stuff that people know. And I know you want to put the team over, but there are other ways to do it rather than just saying stuff that is just nonsensical. They need to find that one piece that's going to put them on a winning run, David. The talent is there. Something. I mean, I'm just saying. Don't just say that they are good, or just for the sake of it, because they say everybody's good, everybody's great, everybody's growing, everybody's successful. Somebody there has to suck, and somebody there has to have a losing record. Somebody there has to have improvement. Everybody's story cannot be we're successful. Anyway, they start off and they get the promo in. The Animal Instinct, that is. Katarina Jinx is such a cartoon character. But, I mean, that's not surprising. And I don't know where she was going with this promo that she starts like, you're wondering how a dog and a cat got together. Pause. Well, that's a story for another day. I was like, why'd you bring it up? Like, what was that? What was that for? That was senseless. Hey, guys, I bet you're wondering where that check I buried underneath the arena somewhere is. Well, I'll talk about that later. Anyway, about me. And that's pretty much what it is. Like, started off with something, looked like she forgot it, and then just moved on to the next thing. That's what it seemed like. Collins is a little better as a promo, but she's a cartoon as well. I know there's somebody out there that likes her and sees, I'm sorry. I see that they're physically speaking, the potential could be there. I can see that. But anything beyond that at this point, I do not see. I'm sorry. I doubt, does she have a good look? Sure. But I don't see it. Not right now. Everything that I get, especially when they are together as Animal Instinct, everything I get from them is just, we are here to play the part of these people. When I punch in, when I walk into the Wild building, I just turn on the character of Goldie Collins and have to talk in dog puns, and she has to talk like a cat. I mean, if anybody that should just be acting in a like I said, a role like on heels or something like that, if there was ever an argument for just make this a situation comedy or something, it's them two. Like I do not get the gimmick of Katarina Jinx. Is she supposed to think that she is a cat? I don't know. And I would have dared to say that she probably doesn't know because they didn't explain it to her. I believe I said during the preview of the last one that if this match is going to take place with these four people, then Santana Garrett is going to have her working boots on or something like that. And lo and behold, yes, she needed to have it. I don't know why it is that Katarina Jinx has to go through these whole feline motions. I guess again, you're playing the part, so I gotta play the part of being this Catwoman. But getting into the match in of itself without going through everything, Santana Garrett started it off. They hooked up. In fairness to Jinx, she was able to do the things that she needed to do with Garrett, but I will also say it was kept pretty basic in the ring. Rear waist locks, pretty much follow Garrett's lead, go over when she says go over. Just things like that. It looked like she kept it very safe for Miss Jinx. They have their moment where she is positioned as even and going hole for hole and whatnot. And then they have their standoff and they both tag out. Katarina Jinx gets up after being arm dragged and then runs over. I should say they had whatever standoff they were going to have a little bit earlier. And so they both tag. Then we get Americana and we get Goldie Collins. Now, between the two of them, I'm going to say that Collins works a little better than Americana does. I do not know why she does this when she sells. She always sells the stomach. I don't know what the deal is with that. I called that earlier. It's like you can hit her in her upper chest and she'll still bend over. I guess that's just her instinct and she is unable to fight against it. But I mean, it always looks like it's a kick in the guts. So Collins cuts off Americana, gets her into the corner after a couple of shots, including the cell that I was talking about. When she gets into the corner and Collins is getting ready to make a tag to Jinx, Americana leans over to reach out for a tag to her partner. Like, help me. And I'm fine with that. What I wasn't fine with is that she just basically sat herself back up in the corner after she reached out for help. Now, I am not prepared to say that is fully her fault, because one or two things probably should have happened there. One, either while she was reaching out, Collins should have cut her off and put her back up into place to where she didn't have to do it. Or Americana should have said, cut me off, and made her do it. Because otherwise it just looked like, well, why didn't you just walk out of the corner if you got, that kind of ability to move your body like this? The only thing that even remotely make it look like it might not have been able to get out is that Collins grabbed her wrist at some point. But anyhow, that aside. So most of this now becomes the sale of Americana. If you listened to this podcast before, I told you I'm not the biggest fan of her sell. It always looks like she's gasping for air. It always looks like she's either selling the stomach. Always stuff like that. Very cartoonish, very over the top. Just those things that make it look silly. But then we have, kind of the silliness of I'm walking my dog out of Goldie Collins when they just grab her hair and the other person doesn't do anything about it. I will say that was probably a good time for Americana to sell to make it look like there was nothing that she could do while she was down on the ground. So I want to give her credit where it is due in that particular case. Katarina Jinx gets back in. And this is where Americana is able to get some distance so she can get herself to a tag. She shot off into the rope. She ducks underneath a clothesline. Comes in really close, maybe misjudged where she needed to be on that drop kick, or perhaps Jinx stepped in, but she delivered a drop kick, but it wasn't full extension. Americana makes the tag, even though they had to do it twice because the first time she missed her hand, and fortunately for Santana Garrett, she actually reached back out. I don't know if it was the referee that said, hey, no, you didn't tag, or whatever the case may be, but she had to reach back out to get that second tag in. And it was a good thing because that aerial shot made it completely obvious. So Garrett gets back in and she gets back in for the cleanup. And she's mostly taking out Goldie Collins. And then before she's able to get the pin, because Garrett does get Collins down, Katarina Jinx comes in for the save, following that side Russian leg sweep. Referee saying get out of the ring, even though Katarina Jinx stays up in there. I'm not even sure if he was counting. She nails her pretty much with a uranagi, stands around until Americana can come in. Then Americana has to stand there until Goldie Collins charges across the ring to get her. Collins then drops Americana in her backbreaker, and then she has to stand around and then kind of walk into a kick from Santana Garrett. No, this is not an exaggeration. Those things happen. Collins is then put into Eat Defeat, which he did not sell very well. Then she's shuffled multiple times to get into position so that Americana can do her, not Americana, Santana Garrett. I am sorry, Santana. I'm sorry to mix you up like that. But yeah, she gets her in so she can do her handspring moonsault to a pin on Collins. 1, 2, 3, we're done. I don't know why Nigel decided to name this the Liberty Bell. I'm just going to say right now, every move, because it seems like this is becoming more and more common, every move does not need some sort of special name to it. It doesn't have to have the Liberty Bell and, that's the catastrophe. All moves don't need that. But again, like I said before, once you're sitting up there at the booth with Dave McClain long enough, his voice will become yours. It's, and the mouse trap, stuff like that. You don't need it. Anyhow, they get the win. And I don't know what the deal was with the referee. I mean, is it me, or does it seem like some of these tag team matches begin to have less and less rules to it as it seems to go along? I could be wrong. I'm just saying that's what it looks like. I've also forgot to say that Nigel tries to sell Wild's training center as making a talented wrestler. I don't see it. I don't care who he was talking about in that. I don't see it. I do not see it. And I say that because Santana Garrett was trained long before that, so that immediately eliminates her. So if he was talking about Americana, Katarina Jenkins, or Goldie Collins being some sort of talented wrestler, passable, yes. Serviceable, yes. Talented, that's a different level. No, I don't see that. And I wanted to be clear, because just because you're not talented in the ring is not some sort of insult. Talented people probably have given years to being in wrestling before they got to that point, where they can actually have a match at the drop of a dime against almost anybody, amongst other things that the nuances that they learn along the way. But no, I do not care who he was trying to apply that to amongst those three. No, I don't see it. Do not see it. Next segment, Genesis backstage cutting a promo on an upcoming match against G.I.Jane. And the promo sounds good. It's actually nice. Like the backdrop of being in the locker room. Just because it was different. Only problem I had with the promo is that the promo was there. Because with WoW, usually that promo is like a sure sign that whoever's talking is going to lose. And there it was. Now, if they had run that promo and then followed it with a retort by G.I.Jane, it probably would have been a little different for me. But by and large, if WoW puts up a video about this person, a promo about this person, a vignette about them, introducing them, and they have a match immediately following, for whatever reasons, is like, this is the sign that they're going to lose. And so I walked into this based on that promo, expecting Genesis to lose. And hey, you know what happened? She lost. So I don't know. I honestly did not know, why they do that. Maybe they would, if they wanted to throw the trail off, like I said, maybe if they put in the second one, G.I.Jane, along with her saying some comments. But they've done this so much, it's like it makes absolute sense for me that she was going to lose. It's happened too many times. Why is she still walking around with the Exile logo? I didn't get that either. It's like, why? Why is she walking around with this? Isn't Exile done? Is she going to change her name to Exile? Is she going to start a new group called Exile? What's up? And then the commentary again. David says that Genesis has been on a winning streak. I wrote how. Underlined several times in red. Her last match, she lost. Where was this? Once you lose, you're no longer on a winning streak. That's just by definition. So where was this coming from? I didn't care enough about it, even though the match was fine. I didn't care enough about it to, go through step-by-step notes. See, I was about to call the Exile right there, but Genesis jump-started the match with Jane, attacked her from behind while Jane was putting up her dog tags and hat. Now, here's another reason why I say that the commentator should be a trusted voice. G.I.Jane, as far as I know, is a legitimate military personnel. I don't know if I would believe that coming from WoW anymore, because they just say stuff. And then it kind of works the truth in there some ways. And I think it should be the other way around. If you're going to fabricate or stretch the truth, you should probably have more truth in it leading into those statements. By the time you get to what is a little bit of a stretch, and people have already taken you as being somebody I trust, they'll trust you there too. Here is like the other way around. They just say these, well, she's been on a winning streak. Animal Instinct's a competent team. Stuff like that. It gets hard to trust your opinion. I mean, because again, everybody there is doing well. Everybody, is successful. There's very little person there that are perceived or presented as they need this win. Very few are given into that particular, narrative or train of thought. It doesn't hurt every once in a while to bring that up, because everybody there ain't winning all the time. Some people, believe it or not, lose more than others. Pep Riley was to walk to the ring at that point, and you got somebody to say, well, she's doing great. My statement is, no, she's not. Preferably if you got, this is coming out the mouth of the heel announcer, but yeah, no, she's not. She could barely buy a win. And I'll put $50 on her right now that she's going to lose today. It's those reasons that heel announcers become useful. Because the babyface announcers should not be talking about things like that. I get it. They should be unbiased, if nothing else. But if you're going to be a babyface announcer, then no, they're not going to bring up the fact that somebody has a losing streak unless it's part of the angle. Anyhow, it would help if they did less of everybody's wonderful, everybody's great, and started getting towards some unbiased commentary. Another name here for a move, the maggot drop again, and boot camp. Every move does not need a name attached to it. It can just be a big boot. It can just be a slam or whatever. But every move does not need a name created just for these persons. So getting to the end, because that's the important part. They have a pretty fair match between the two of them, accounting for the experience of them both. Genesis gains control of the match. This is following Jane doing, a couple of big run-ins on her. Again, this is at the end. Whatever G.I.Jane was about to do, it looked like it could have been a power bomb. Genesis floats over and then comes back around with a rake of the eyes, and then hits her with like a full Nelson slam. And for whatever reasons, just decides that I'm going to get up on the ropes and start yelling at some people. I did not particularly care for this, but it also made a good point with Genesis, so I wasn't going to hold it against her because she got what she deserved for doing something stupid like that. She lost. She got rolled up. Jane saw her getting on the ropes, talking, and Genesis's arrogance, because it's hard to say. You can see her back in the background. As soon as she comes down, Jane just kind of rolls through, gets herself in position, rolls her up, hooks it in good with a lot of body weight, and then gets the pin. So, whereas it's not something that I personally was endorsing, I don't dislike it. It worked for that situation and for how they were presenting it. So my question would be, is this something that they are going to go forward with Genesis? Is she going to be a victim of her arrogance more often than not? Is she going to turn her back on people? Is she so convinced that she's such a phenomenal wrestler that she doesn't have to pay attention? If it's going in that direction, I think it'd be great, quite honestly. Like I said, me not initially liking the finish does not mean I didn't like the finish, overall. I didn't initially care for it. I was like, oh, why would she do something like that? But then the combination of the two of them, Genesis' reaction, G.I.Jane's roll up, how she pressed into it, all that stuff. That last minute or so made the difference. Even though, like I said, I didn't walk into it caring for the match because I expected Genesis to lose, and she did. But it fit the narrative of that match. I hope that it goes somewhere. I doubt it, but, wishful thinking. After the match, Dave McClain walks into the ring so he can interview G.I.Jane. I don't know what I feel about this promo. She's a babyface, and I think that it was supposed to be presented as babyface, but it's almost like I'm going to solve the problem before the problem exists. Kind of like that. She basically said that she was tired of the lack of discipline and cheating that's going on in the locker room, right? Or just with the WoW roster. And that she was going to bring order to WoW. Again, I know that is a babyface promo in essence, but when you start like, I'm going to bring order to this company, it can very easily drift off into heel. Because there's not a lot of stuff that happened that would have instigated her into feeling this way on camera. You know what I'm saying? It's not like she had a setback because of cheating, lost opportunity because of cheating, didn't get the title because she was cheated out of it, or a title shot because she was cheated out of it, or anything like that. We haven't seen these things take place, which is one of the biggest problems that WoW has. Is like when stuff comes up, it's not presented as such. Now, it could have also been a case of that was just a promo that she came up with off the top of her head, which, I mean, I get the E for effort. You have to do that. But if it was just one off the top of her head, again, nice, good conviction, but it could very, very easily drift off into sounding like a heel promo, especially when it's seen as preemptive. I'm going to arrest the criminal before the crime is committed type thing. And if that makes any sense. The next match. Oh, I forgot. They did bring up something about the winning streak of Genesis. Like I said, that whole thing was just the narrative of her being this successful winning streak that she had. if that were even the case, this would have devalued it, and it would have devalued the win, because if she had a winning streak, then G.I. Jane winning should have been a big deal. So again, I don't know why he brought that up. I was writing that down just to say, okay, what did she gain by David McClain mentioning earlier that there was a winning streak? Was that supposed to give a big win to G.I. Jane? Because I can't see how it is. It wasn't treated as such, so what was the point? And it didn't really put Genesis over because she immediately lost. I didn't get it out of the way. Next segment. Coach Campanelli with Top Tier versus Lil J Boogie. And I just did not care so much about this one. For obvious reasons. Anybody that's listened to me has known is like, okay, I'm not even a fan of the name Little J Boogie. That's so stupid. I mean, J Boogie maybe, but this Little J Boogie thing, come on. Why are Top Tier still walking around with this trophy? This means nothing. Trophy is just crap. The only reason I can even give that a halfway pass is because Campanelli would be arrogant enough to do it as a character. But Top Tier has been such a bust as a team overall. Like they have not done a thing other than remain in the orbit of Ariel Sky one way or the other. And we will get to that a little bit later on, because I did get my email with the next show's press release. But that's, we'll get to that when we get to that. The positive here is Campanelli has a good look. She's serviceable in the ring. And in this particular match, I'll even say Boogie was serviceable in the ring, but her presentation just galls me. I mean, starting off with the dancing dynamo, I was like, okay, are we supposed to be happy that she's a dancer, or is she a wrestler here? You give the title of a dancing dynamo to somebody else, and nobody ever sees it. She does a couple of moves here and there on the screen, and when she does them, despite the fact that she has a YouTube that shows her to be a good dancer, no one believes it. I have to say it to them in the room, because they're already wanting to criticize. They're already wanting, like, oh, she can't dance. Look at that. She messed it up. They're already wanting to look at her as a pretender, just because she's a dancing wrestler, which is a large part of the reason that I do not like the persona or the character of Lil J Boogie. It's just so ridiculous. And then there's almost little to no psychology to her. She comes out in the arena, dancing around the ring, walks right by all three members of Top Tier without blinking an eye. Didn't even pay attention to him. It's like, would you really do that if you were concerned over this hostile team that you have to wrestle against in the next 10 seconds? I don't know if I would do that. But that's what I mean. It's little things like that just bother me. I mean, she literally just danced right by him and just dance, let me dance for the camera and slap some hands and shake it and say hey to the kids. Didn't give it a second thought. And yes, I do realize that is a small thing. I get that. And despite the fact that it's a small thing, if you're trying to get a faction like Top Tier over, just in general, as something to be respected, if nothing else, you can at least step back away from him a little bit, use a little caution when going by, maybe. But to have her just go through and like, oh, yay, I'm dancing here, and not even be remotely concerned, I thought was, a little extra nail in my disapproval of J Boogie. And yeah, like I said, I know that some of that is just because I do not like the character of J Boogie. I just don't. Anyhow, they start the match, and why don't we do a little play-by-play with this one? Because it ain't long. It's like 6 minutes, maybe. So I am going to give this thing a start from 0 on the video. And we will watch this thing together. If you are listening to this on MP3, you probably have to go find on YouTube and then hit play when I say hit play. If you're looking at this on YouTube, you may see it possibly in the video. Possibly. I'm not making no promises. So let's get ourselves together and watch this masterpiece. So we're going to give you time to go and get to Coach Campanelli with Top Tier versus Lil J Boogie on the WoW YouTube channel, WoW Superheroes. And let's make sure that you get past whatever commercial or ad that you have in front of you. So we're all on the same page. And it should be at all zeros. So I'm going to count it down, and when I say hit play, then hit play, and then we should be more or less timed up together. So, here we go. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. So we're looking at Lauren in the ring and making her announcements. And there's that goddamn trophy I was just talking about. But like I said, I was letting Nigel Zane talk, but like I said, it at least fits her. I can give it that, even though I think the trophy is worthless. But why do they have glitter more often? She's probably the best wrestler of the bunch. Now, David and Nigel talking about theft out there in L.A., which I get to see on a regular basis. Like every time y'all have a car jacking out there, it makes news, which is seemingly on a day-to-day basis. Now, I don't know what they're talking about there with this celebration, but, there he is, the dancing dynamo she's announcing. And I promise I'm going to be fair. So here she goes, dances, looking at the camera. Does a little B-boy dance, and there she goes, right by the look, not looking. Doesn't care. There she goes. Then slapping some hands. And they putting the dancing over so much. I mean, you would think that she actually wanted to be a dancer rather than a wrestler the way they're talking about it. Go figure. He's talking about her not being in Brat Pack. Now, you see that what I expected with this match largely was that it was going to be fairly basic, just between the two of them. Nice takeover by Boogie. Got to give her credit. I'm trying to see what happened to Coach's hands. She's been having that tape on it for a while. She dislocated her fingers or something. Now, at some point in this match, David McClain talks about Campanelli being some sort of technician, which I absolutely didn't get. It's like, what do you mean? She just shot her off, shoulder block, goes for a cover. I think it's about to come off on the second shoot off of the ropes. Elbow in the guts. She shoots her off, duck down, and nope, that's not either. But I will say, nice execution by Boogie. I don't think she understands when and why she does stuff, and then they just went ahead and ruined the terrible camera shot, and they already devalued her finish. Ain't happened 2 times and it's already devalued. I know that she didn't know not to allow somebody not to devalue her finish. She said, this is what I'm talking about. And David goes into this explanation about, do you see how she stepped into it? Like, that makes she's a ring technician. It's like, okay, no. I don't know if she had stepped forward like I didn't see what he was talking about. There's another forearm, kicks in the corner. David gives too much credit where credit is not due. Good on top tier for participating and being the heel faction that they're supposed to be. I don't know what kind of sell job that she was doing over there in the corner. Looked like she was ready to smile. Maybe it's fun for her. I don't know. If anyone there, I think, would have some sort of potential on going further, maybe Coach. But I also don't think that she probably does not care enough about it to try that outside of a WoW environment. But again, it was a nice elbow that she just gave there. But I don't understand. Was the leg lariat supposed to have been Boogie's finish? I thought that was what she was building towards. She used it within 2 minutes of the match, and then Campanelli just kicked out of it. And it wasn't a good camera shot for it in the first place, but still. Too early to devalue finishes. I don't know. She just hopped over top of Campanelli and looked like she was confused as to why and how she did it. I don't know what that was about. You can go back and you can look at her face later. That was a nice sell by Boogie. I was questionable about this being applied. Them going for a sharpshooter, AK, Scorpion Deathlock, or what have you. But they at least didn't devalue that. They caused a rope break. I was like, all right, that's we can go somewhere with that. So here we go. I think we should be coming up on the end of this thing soon. There's another forearm shot by Coach. You notice that the match overall is pretty tight but basic. There's not a lot of I don't know what that was. She tried to come in for something and then Boogie moves out of the way. And there's a crucifix. She gets the pin. Campanelli's able to get out of it. Drop kick in the stomach. And like I said, it's more or less a fairly basic match. Doesn't seem like a lot of complexity. I just got that step up in Zaguri off of a Coach. And let's see if I even recall what the finish is. Campanelli's up. You see Glitter holding on to the tights, which was good. Drop toe hold. And there we go for it the second time. Again, already been devalued. Nice roll up by Campanelli after Glitter cheats on her behalf. Here we go. The unprettier or the buzzer beater about it. It was nice. And a 1, a 2, a 3. There we go. And a good cover by Coach as well. And the important part of the match happens following this. They go immediately into attacking. And I don't know why WoW and their social media decides that the second that the match is over with, we're just going to cut away from it. Is the dumbest thing in their YouTube channel. Like, seriously? Are you that desperate for views that you got to break up every little thing that you do? Because that's the only purpose that could possibly serve. So for those of you that actually watch this through WOW's YouTube channel, I apologize on their behalf because they're dumb with that. But anyhow, change my headphones here. Sorry, I just had to have those on so I could hear the commentators as the match was going on. But after the match, here comes, well, I guess I should preface this by saying you saw that they started to attack J Boogie. This is 3 people, full faction. They start up, but then lo and behold, who comes out there for the save? Steffi Slays. And the entirety of the team runs away. I honestly was like, what is happening here? Why would all 3 of these women be scared of her? To the point that they like legitimately look like they're running in fear. What has Steffi Slays done on this show ever that would lead anyone to believe that she's some kind of badass? Now, I can see if she came out there wielding a nightstick or a kendo stick or a steel chair or something like that. She came out there barehanded and by herself. And they, oh my God, Steffi, and they took off running. Like, what was that? Why would I ever believe that top tier could do anything? And so, I don't know. So they put this off, Steffi Slays is, I guess, J Boogie's guardian angel or something. So she comes in for the save and like a small child clutches onto her mother. Boogie's thankful that she was saved by, from the big bad top tier by Steffi Slays. And it's a constant barrage of everyone being great. I don't know. So we move on to the next one, and in complete fairness to that, it wasn't a terrible match, but I don't see it as being a great one the way that WOW likes to portray it. I'll just put it that way. There was execution, that was done well. I didn't necessarily get certain things that were happening in the ring. Like I said, Boogie taking a leap over top of Coach and then landing like, what's going on? Where am I? Like she was confused somehow. If anything, it should have been the other way around. It should have been Coach like, where did she go? Boogie in this is the babyface. She's not supposed to be disoriented and stupid about her position. So, anyway. The next segment that we got is WOW recapping the introduction of the Mother Truckers. And they would some reason go all the way back to when they got there in the first place. Like when they picked up Lana Starr and the Fabulous Four from their broken down car. And for whatever reason, even though they got a tow truck service, she has a big rig come out there, which doesn't tow trucks. It towed cargo. And if that cargo happens to be a truck, then yeah. So anyway, they go all the way back to that. They show them helping out Jesse Jones, which I'm not even sure why they even acknowledge that, because they have, other than that day, I'm not sure if they've ever had another word or any interaction with Jesse Jones whatsoever. And there's another case of somebody that's behind the barricade like, we got to get in there and help. So they just ran on in and did what they did and then wound up with wild contracts. So let that be a lesson to you young ladies out there. If you want to become a wrestler, just go to WOW and jump into the show. And Dave McClain to sign you up ASAP. They go into the Truckers winning the titles. And then they go into videos to try to make the Bandidas look more like top contenders. This is a little bit bloated for me. I got where they were going, and I could appreciate the video. But it was kind of bloated. I thought for efficiency's sake, the beginning of how the Truckers got there could have been cut off. I mean, it really wasn't relevant to what was going on here. I understand that they were trying to reintroduce the truckers, but you're selling the main event now. That was the primary goal for this. You're selling the main event. And that portion of their history I didn't think was really necessary to the narrative of the main event. Also, I probably would have excluded a shot of them defeating Los Bandidas, even if it was a different version of them. Like within that clip, you see Los Bandidas getting dropped by the mother truckers with a pair of stunners or something, which was sold terribly. And sold terribly by who was that? Lindsay? I don't know why, but it was like several people that took that stunner and just completely crapped the bed with it. Not in this case, however. We gotta give credit where it's due. But yeah, I mean they did that, and then this video rolled in trying to make the Bandidas seem like top contenders, which again, this is kind of largely banking on the fact that you have short-term memory. They're top contenders because they won this one match last week. And not really much else beyond that. Matter of fact, I don't even think these two have a winning history at all beyond last week. I don't remember beforehand, because the Bandidas, before the change of Angel Rose, was a horrible team. They only had like maybe 2 wins out of 10 or something like that. So, again, good video for somebody who's just tuning in and don't know anything about it or has short-term memory. The next segment was a preview of next week, which I started bringing up earlier in the review. And they show Ariel Sky against Candy Crush. I said, why? My God, why can she not get out of the orbit of these people? She is stuck in their gravitational pull. Why is this still happening? And that's not even the worst of it. But still, that's like, why is this happening? And then they announced a title match for some reason against Tormenta. I shouldn't even say against Tormenta. They announced a title match. And then they flickered and showed Tormenta into like the last frame or two. Which I don't understand why they would do that. Just say that Tormenta has the shot. Not hint at it. What's the point in that? There's no guesswork to WoW that is going to apply to anybody that's going to make them feel like, I need to watch this so I can see who gets it. No one knew it was going to come in. You know it's got to be somebody off the roster. And very few people out there are going to push a number, regardless of who they are. But yeah, they did a little flickering of Tormenta, and yeah, that's who's facing the beast. I guess once she went babyface, her win-loss record has increased sufficiently and brought her back up to number 1 contender status again. So, the one thing that I was kind of thinking about here when I started off this match is like, is part of the narrative with the Bandidas is that they were being held back by Lopez. Because part of that little video package that they showed was Lopez coming in, and I hated the way they executed that. I know where they were trying to go, but the execution was like crap. Because Lopez came in the ring bitching and yelling at them. And so when Angel Rose slaps her for being yelled at, it's like, why would you assume that Lopez is the sympathetic one in this particular situation? She came in yelling about you losing again and stuff like that, and then she got smacked in the face for it. And then she comes out in the following week and then she turns babyface because of her diagnosis. But I'm saying within that moment, why would you expect that Lopez would be the sympathy figure between the 3 of them? Was it 3 or 4? You got to count for Tormenta. So I didn't get that at the time. And I certainly at this point don't really understand, because it seems as if now that she's gone, we're so much better. So I was like, was she the fault of the team? Is she holding them back? I think about little things like that, I guess. I don't, and maybe it's overthinking it, but I do. All four of these ladies have some wrestling pedigree that, to the best of my knowledge, exists beyond the walls of WoW, which is probably why this was a very competent match and fun match. I wish that the Bandidas had been treated a little better walking into a situation like this, to where they could have been perceived or looked at even before the change of one of the members, so they could be perceived as a little bit more of a threat rather than a good team to go in there and give a good match to somebody else. And that's pretty much what they became. It's like, they can do well in the ring, so let's just have them make everybody else look good. And that is, an admirable quality in the wrestling universe, but I just thought they could have gotten a little bit something extra out of them, especially when they were starting up this heel versus heel feud with Miami Sweet Heat. But this is essentially a typical Mother Truckers match. It's what you would expect. At some point, Holly Swag gets cut off. Then the heels take control. They bump around a little bit. She's able to get a tag. Big Rig comes in for the cleanup, and then she wins. And that's essentially what we had here. It's not anything surprising, but I will say not being surprising does not mean that it's not good. There was one thing I thought was kind of awkward in the match when the reversal that Holly Swag had coming out of the corner. Sanchez is being whipped out. I don't know why exactly Holly Swag would have been whipping her towards her own corner to begin with, but that's essentially what she was doing. So she whips out towards her corner. Sanchez reverses it and sticks Holly into their corner. She kind of awkwardly walks out towards Angel Rose, which we don't really see her do. And, Angel's already propped up there and ready for a clothesline. So that one thing, I was like, I don't know how I like that yet. But Sanchez is good. She, they do the whole manipulating the referee well. They got him out of position so Sanchez could choke, and she choked well. I mean, she sold the idea that she was trying her best to strangle this girl, on her face. And Holly's selling it well. She's kicking around. She's trying to get free. It was doing good stuff. Even Big Rig got the referee that I'm kind of iffy on and got him in position where he needed to be. She's coming into the ring like, ref, you're not paying attention. He's over there trying to stop her. They like this little segment here, I thought, it all kind of went together, even though Scheinberg is still just waving his arms around and whatnot. Just always seems kind of lost to me. So anyhow, very well done. They go through the normal stuff. Like I said, it's pretty much Holly Swag's show at this point, and a exhibition of holes on her by Angel Rose and Sylvia Sanchez. The crossface I could have did without by Sanchez because it did not look like the crossface itself looked like it was in a good. Her draping her arm, Holly Swag's arm over her thigh, I probably could have did without, because on TV all it did, and I can, I oftentimes talk about the guys that's watching this with me in the room at work. All that did was like, oh, she could get out of that. It probably would have come out better if she had grapevine the arm rather than just draping it over her thigh. Other than that, I mean, it looked good, but it was literally just as easy as Holly Swag lifts her arm and pulls, starts to pull herself free. A really good big boot to the face by not Sanchez, Rose. Swag sold it great. like I said, it becomes Swag's show in terms of sell. And Las Bandidas got a chance to sit up there and pretty much execute move after move after move. The little tandem backbreaker move that they did, the little backbreaker deal, I thought was cool. Drop it with the backbreaker, hit it with the clothesline. In another universe, that probably could have been a finish for them, but I guess that that's not to be because I don't see a future for Las Bandidas, quite honestly. But moving along, I mean, they kept going on and on with Swag, until she got to her moment where I done had all I can stands and I can't stands no more. She breaks feet, gives a nice slap in the backhand and a super kick and drops Rose, gets her bearings and then tags out to Mama. She comes in and she's calling them through so they can do what they need to do. Ripcord clothesline, back elbows, clotheslines, charging the corners, bulldogs. And then, following a super kick, she wins this thing with a stunner. And of all the people that have given, or I should say not given, but taken stunners on there, I'd say that Rose probably took it the best of the bunch. Everybody else had like they didn't know where they were going or what the to do. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. Oh. I hope I remember to bleep that. Oh, man. Okay, yeah. Everybody else act like they just did not know what to do when they took that stunner, but Rose took it very well. Popped back up, put the legs up for the fold up and pin, and that was it. 1, 2, 3, we're done. But then after the match, what would happen? But the Mother Truckers are attacked by Miami Sweet Heat. And I wrote, how many times can we do this same angle? I mean, I cannot recall the amount of times that the Mother Truckers have just been jumped over and over and over again. I would have to go check my notes. But it's like that happened to them at least once in a month. Like every appearance that they made, they would win or something, and then somebody come attack them. More often than not, it was like Miami Sweet Heat, and they did it again. And they went off with that. And I don't know what Dave McClain was talking about, and I'm not sure if you can find it on the YouTube because they cut it off at the end. But at some point at the end of this, he's like, Miami Sweet Heat inadvertently attacked the Mother Truckers. Like, what? I'm not sure you know what inadvertently means. How do you inadvertently attack somebody? If I'm attacking them, I'm pretty sure I did it on purpose. So I don't know. I just felt like, I had to take a note on that when I heard it. It's like, wait a minute, inadvertent. And everybody else in the room was like, inadvertent? What was inadvertent? How was it inadvertent? And yeah, I was like, I could not explain it to them. Co-workers who watch again, I know I have to reset the table every once in a while and tell people, hey, look, I'm in an environment where this is part of the job at the time. We monitor the broadcast on certain channels. And part of the deal, because we're looking at it in multiple cities, and the playlist is you see the digital tier channels, and this is one that airs on the digital tier channel, and most people look at it because it's not in the room, I mean. It's not a lot of stuff that can't compete with it right now because everything is in reruns, and we've seen everything. I know the average person wouldn't know that, but when the syndication packages go out, you get a certain amount of shows per station. And so until it's recycled out, they just run through the same, let's say, 15 to 20 shows or episodes. And we've seen all those episodes, all of them. So no one's looking at anything other than WoW when WoW comes on because WoW is new. So back to the point, when things that are perceived as dumb to the room take place, because I have been kind of noted as the wrestling guy there, I'm the one that they look at. It's like, what was that? And I don't know. And it comes down to even stuff they just says. I was like, inadvertent. I was like, what? Does he know what inadvertent means? I was like, I don't know. I never met him. So, yeah. Things like that. So, their segment that had the preview in it gave you at least 2 matches, but as I have told you before, I usually get these previews, press releases for the upcoming episode. I am going to read that preview right now. Part of it you already heard, but if you don't want to hear the rest, I guess you can skip off. But we're going to go through this really quick. Next episode is going to be 247. Title, Last Superhero Standing. It's a 6-person tag team match when Lana Starr sends her fabulous team of Penelope Pink and Miami Sweet Heat to fight the Tonga Twins and Tiki Chamorro. And let me pause right there to say that I was already laughed at for thinking that it was going to be the last that I saw the Tonga Twins and Miami Sweet Heat by somebody who knew that there was not going to be end of Miami Sweet Heat and the Tonga Twins. When I said that, I got a message that was pretty much a laughing emoji. I was like, oh, God. So I apologize to anybody that got their hopes up that they didn't have to sit through that nonsense anymore. We got to do it again. Courageous Ariel Sky continues in her fight against Top Tier by taking on former boxer Candy Crush in singles action. The Dojo Defenders find themselves in the ring with the Heavy Metal Sisters, Fury and Rebel Hayes. And once again, the Beast must defend her championship title against the Mexican champion Tormenta in our WoW main event. Who will be the last superhero standing? Okay. So, first thoughts on the preview. 1, I could have really done without this feud continuing. The Island Dynasty and the Fab Four, get off of this already. I mean, the Tonga Twins, been out there for what, 2 months now at least. Good Lord. And for those that say, well, they haven't updated their website, the Tonga Twins are still on it. I'm going to say give them a pass right now because the Tonga Twins are still on their air. And they probably know that most people are not paying attention to any backstage drama because they don't cater to that audience. So they're probably not even aware that the Tonga Twins aren't even part of the show any longer. But I am done with this. As much as I am done with the next one, Ariel Sky and Candy Crush. Be done with this. Why do they keep coming back around to Ariel Sky and Top? What is it going to take for her to be finished with this feud? I mean, she beat the person that allegedly was bullying her. And why is it going in reverse? If her issue was with Coach Campanelli, why are we starting with Coach Campanelli and then working down? What else does she need? She already won with the Mother Truckers. She won, technically speaking, even though she didn't get into the match with the All-American girls. She's beating Coach on her own. Probably is going to beat Candy Crush. What else is left? Why are we still here? And on the other side of the coin, what does Top Tier have to gain from any of this? What do they have to gain at all from any of this? I mean, and it just in a real world kayfabe logic, what do they have to gain by constantly coming back to Ariel Sky and walking around with a worthless trophy? I had hopes for them that they might go into the next phase of being the top heel team on the show so that you can give the Fab Four a break. They've been there long enough. I had hopes that top tier would do that, and maybe they would win the tag titles or something along those lines. Maybe they might organize and get one of the people to challenge for the WoW Championship or something along those lines. I ain't say win it, but challenge for. But it's just constantly Aerial Sky. We step away for a moment, come back to Aerial Sky. Have another match, come back to Aerial Sky. Why does this keep happening? And the Dojo Defenders against the Heavy Metal Sisters. I don't even know what I think about that match, quite honestly. Probably not enough to care. The main event, the Beast and Tormentor. Now, I don't have a problem with the match taking place beyond that one. Even if Tormentor is a Mexican champion, they have run that thing into the ground. It's like the only credible thing that they can give her in the WoW universe. Mexican champion Tormentor, Mexican champion Tormentor, Mexican champion Tormentor. I was like, that was fine when she first got there because she needed to establish some level of credibility. But can you not do something else with her now to give her credibility in WoW? If she's the Mexican and what does that even mean? It's not mentioned any sort of promotion. It's just a generic, vague title. And if she is that, and y'all are so willing to call it out, then let her show up on TV with the belt. That might at least give some kind of credence to what you're talking about. But it's just over and over and over again because they haven't done anything else that would allow you to think that she has accomplished anything in WoW, because she hasn't. Maybe if they gave her some solid wins somewhere, they would be able to say something else other than Mexican champion Tormentor. I mean, you can say she won the championship at CMLL or AAA or something, depending on what promotion it happened to be. If you're going to give credit, give credit. If she's still the champion, let her have the belt. If you're just making it up, then create one that she can walk in there with. But don't just keep carrying on and on and on and on about it for a title no one's ever going to see. And for something that is only designed to make her sound like to the WoW audience that she has some level of, I am on par with you, Beast, or whoever she happens to be in there with. In this case, the Beast. Now, how Tormentor got another title shot, I don't know. I mean, goes back to the whole thing with Sophia Lopez. Did she just finagle a title shot out of the blue? And this even goes further back to when I was saying when the Beast wins the title, who do they have to put her up against? And the answer is nobody. I mean, they got a lot of bodies in there that they can have a match with. But these title matches, they are going to run the value out of having a championship match. Championship matches are great. In most cases, I will look forward to them. But they're going to run the value out on this because almost no championship match they have has any sort of build to it. It just happens. And it doesn't matter whether you're qualified or a top contender or not. Just a title match. Animal Instinct, first time together, title match. Classmaster, who hadn't done much of anything, title match. Tormentor, who I like, but title match. Even Penelope Pink, like her. Lost the week before, title match. There's really no rhyme or reason to who gets it and why. They just get one. I honestly don't know what to say. And that's not an indictment of talent. It's just there seems to be like obvious paths that they can go when certain things take place that they just ignore because, well, we decide to go this way and this is what we're going to stick to. Case in point, Penelope Pink. She probably has given some of the best matches that the Beast has had, short of maybe Tessa Blanchard or possibly Jungle Girl. And that's just a whole different kind of match that they had. It was just more like a Lesnar Goldberg type thing. Let's outpower each other, slam each other around. But that's not here nor there. The point being is that in terms of the match, that was great. But in terms of the logic of their universe, why was she there? Especially since she just lost to Tiki Chamorro like the previous week. And that was an opening in and of itself. They could have gone into their own little program right there and given Tiki something to do and Penelope an angle to go into. But it's like we have this path and we cannot deviate. And I don't know how they organize their shows. I hope that when they go into the next place, the TV studios, and they shoot weekend every week for a month, which is probably going to be the next 6 months worth of programming just in that month that they do. Maybe the whole year, depending on how long they shoot. Oh boy, I just thought about that. It might be the whole year. Good Lord, no. Anyway, yeah. Sometimes I don't think about these things until I actually see it. But anyhow, yeah, I don't know how their shooting schedule is, how they arrange those things or organize their timeline. So I also, having said that, do not know their window to pivot. But they probably should work on that one way or the other. Because again, there could have been something out of here that would have at least given, let's say, this fight that the Island Dynasty and the Fab Four are going to have upcoming. If that was built around Chamorro and Pink, it would probably be more engaging. Particularly if we knew that walking into it. As it is, we don't know anything about it. We'll probably have to hear it that day. And they're going to have to work you into wanting to see who wins or loses right at that moment. Whereas, let's just say if they took the opening of that recap of the Truckers and Los Bandidas and trimmed that down, and you got a minute off of it to where you could put a 30-second promo from Tiki, a 30-second promo from Pink, advertising their hatred for each other or whatever. Something along those lines. I mean, the timing, it might need more time on their hands to get the point across, but you know what I'm saying. It is fascinating to me at times, the logic that exists in WoW. It only makes me double down on what I said earlier, that I have no reason to believe that they aim for a wrestling audience, which only makes me question, then who are they aiming for? Because casual TV viewers have things to watch. There's everything else on TV. And I would predict when the fall season rolls in and the new syndication packages go out, not just within the room that I'm in, but across the country, because I'm sure there are some people that probably do watch that and have noticed that it's just a cycling of the same couple episodes. When there's some new things that come up, that probably affect their numbers. That's my prediction. When they actually have something that's on TV on another channel that's like, oh man, I can be looking at this now. I think it's going to affect WoW once there is some other compelling argument to come into. The one thing that they did have going for them, and not to talk inside business, but when that strike took place, it offset a lot of new content going in, including syndication packages. So they entered into the market at a good time. How that will work going forward, who knows? But they do have a 24-hour day Pluto channel that they can utilize. They could probably do some live events on Pluto. I wonder whether they would take the time and effort to do it, but they probably could, at least do a special here and there if they really wanted to. Hey, the things I've said have somehow found its way into the ether of WoW and manifested itself. Who's to say that won't? And if that's also the case, I'm going to try this now. Let's see if this manifests itself. Hire better wrestlers. Don't stick with Backpage and try to get every other actress that's willing to jump in there. Get some wrestlers. And do better creative. And that will do it. I appreciate the time that you've given this show and the reviews and the engagement. That's what makes it worthwhile. The engagement that has begun to occur from doing these podcasts. I find that there are people out there who somewhat agree with what I'm saying, and some things I said that may not have even crossed their minds until I brought it up. So I'm glad that I could share that with you and help get you to look at WoW through some different lenses, a different pair of eyes. As I say with every episode, I too have a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week stream. Yeah. I know. They didn't invent it. I had it too. But you can see mine's on the WPN website. That's WPNWrestling.com. You can check out everything that I've done that was wrestling related back to 2013. And I've illustrated the point that there's some names on there that'll probably be new to you, but there's also going to be some names and faces that you recognize that have moved on to places like AEW, TNA Wrestling. Some of them are in WoW. Some of them are in WWE. But you can see some of their beginnings, the legends that were on the indies before they were legends. Maybe legends is a bit high. Superstars. We'll go with that. See the superstars before they became superstars. You can check them out right there, WPNWrestling.com. Of course, that's not the only thing that runs there, but it's primarily wrestling. And you can also get every podcast episode that is gone. If you don't know where to get it and you're just stumbling across this for the first time, well, it does release on greater podcast platforms, but you also can get that right on WPNWrestling.com. It is the centerpiece for everything. You just scroll down and you'll see it right there at the bottom. Bam. And of course, you want to do the nice YouTube things for me. That has certainly helped the show. Thank you for those who have. The like, share, subscribes. Thank you all very much for that. And so, in closing, I am going to say I'm going to cross my fingers and wait with bated breath for the next episode, and I hope that I am proven wrong, that I actually enjoy it, but time will tell. So on that note, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.